Hello, knowledge seekers. In this episode of 20-Minute Books, we delve into 2030 Inches by Mauro F. Guillén, an enlightening exploration into the not-so-distant future. Guillén, the Zanman Professor of International Management at the Wharton School and a seasoned sociologist, shares his insights into how current trends and technological advancements are shaping the world to come. As we peer into the next decade through his expert eyes, we unveil the seismic shifts in demographics, market dynamics, and global challenges we're poised to face. This book is a must-listen for those in technology and marketing sectors who strive to stay ahead of the curve, as well as environmental activists seeking innovative solutions to the climate crisis. It's also perfect for the intellectually curious, who are eager to glimpse possible scenarios of our shared future. Join us as we summarize the thought-provoking predictions and analyses that make 2030 Inches a convincing forecast of the transformations ahead. "2030: How today's biggest trends will collide and reshape the future of everything." Introduction: Navigating the uncharted waters of 2030. As you stand on the brink of a new decade, you can't help but wonder, what awaits us in the year 2030? The reality is, while we can't predict the future with precision, we can make educated guesses based on today's trends. These don't promise a crystal ball vision, but they do sketch a roadmap of what's to come. Imagine trekking through time to discover the world a mere 10 years ahead. That's precisely what we're about to explore. Picture this. The year is 2030, and every aspect of daily life is reshaped. Temperatures are rising, challenging the coastal cities where most people live. A demographic shift is overturning social norms, with baby boomers becoming a dominant force thanks to longevity triumphing over birth rates. Meanwhile, the global economic landscape is drastically reconfiguring, as some nations charge ahead and others hit a stalemate. To face the future's hurdles and seize its gifts, knowledge is your compass. This journey will reveal the bright stars of technology shining against the dark sky of climate change and poverty, will show why women are positioned to achieve greater economic success than men, and will illuminate the societal shift towards a shared consumption model. Fasten your seatbelt. The expedition to 2030 is about to take off. Part 1. A global shift. Fewer babies, more elderly, and the looming demographic transition. Imagine the year 2030. Gone are the days when unchecked growth was the spectre haunting the globe. Instead, we're treading into a world that may struggle to hear the pitter-patter of tiny feet. It's a dramatic departure from just half a century ago when Paul and Anne Ehrlich's population bomb warned of a burgeoning human populace teetering on the brink of disaster. The tide has turned. We're now facing what might be called a baby drought, and it's set to redefine the contours of society. Here's the crux. The birth rates are in a nosedive, poised to reshape the human dynamic forever. Let's look at the United States, where since the 70s, the average number of children per woman has dipped below 2, not enough to replace existing generations. One might argue that fewer people could lighten the load on the Earth's strained systems, but there's a twist. Our economies are built on the assumption of youth supporting the old, funding pensions and health care through zestful earnings. This principle is hanging by a thread, with countries from Brazil to Japan peering into a murky future, wondering who'll bear the burden of their expansive elderly populace. You may be wondering, why the decline? The modern woman often delays motherhood until she's carved out her niche professionally, but fertility doesn't wait, declining with age. Consequently, women who push starting a family into later years tend to have fewer children, and, curiously, we're entangled in less intimacy. A study by the Archives of Sexual Behavior revealed a drop in sexual activity, with Americans clocking in 9 fewer encounters annually in the 2010s than in the prior decade. The culprits? The legion of tantalizing distractions. Technology sprawls across our living rooms, making sex merely one among torrents of indoor pursuits. Africa strikes a contrasting chord, with projections estimating a surge from 1.3 billion to 2 billion by 2038, center stage in sub-Saharan countries. This unprecedented growth invites trillion-dollar opportunities in agriculture and food markets, as forecasted by the World Bank. And here's the clincher. Western nations might have to soften their rigid immigration policies. As their retiree population balloons, they could likely find themselves leaning on the younger workers streaming in from the global south. In essence, a demographic dance is underway, choreographing a world where the young are fewer, the old are plentiful, and the balance of global power shivers on a fulcrum of seismic shifts. Part 2. The Silver Economy. Harnessing the financial clout of senior citizens, rewind to the quaint streets of the Netherlands, 1891. There, the enterprising father-son duo, Frederick and Gerard Philips, birthed an electronics titan known as Philips, a beacon of innovation that lit up the 20th century. But when the tide of inexpensive Asian gadgets swelled in the 90s, Philips faced a reckoning. It teetered on the edge until Frans van Houten steered the ship towards the burgeoning realm of healthcare technology, seizing upon the world's ballooning aging population, a move that would steer the company away from ruin. Let's spotlight the big idea. The graying crowds are pocketing more wealth than ever before. When Van Houten ascended in 2011, he latched onto an insight many still overlook. The so-called grey market is no barren wasteland. It's a treasure trove. Right now, those 60 and up, the baby boomers and the silent generation before them, command over half of the planet's wealth. And by 2030, 400 million more will swell the ranks of this golden age group. With retirement receding further into their timeline, these folks are set to pile up wealth, becoming an economic powerhouse that companies can't afford to ignore. Here's the twist. Most brands still do. A staggering 96% of over 50s in the UK feel cast aside, becoming ghost consumers to the firms they could be enriching. Businesses awake to this seismic shift will court the 60-plus crowd, not with dull platitudes but with aspirational messaging and products trimmed to their tastes and needs. Yet, make no mistake, this audience, experienced as they are, won't be easily wooed by run-of-the-mill advertising. The potential is limitless. Consider the appeal of elegant shoes merged with orthopedic support, or chic appliances that morph with their evolving physical prowess. A washing machine that's a friend to a septuagenarian today could be a foe in their 80s. The message could not be clearer. To inoculate the economy against frailty, we must align our markets and minds with the emerging strengths and challenges of our most seasoned citizens. Part 3. The Global Middle Class, a tale of Eastern rise and Western wane. Economists agree on one thing. The middle class is the linchpin that keeps the gears of the economy oiled and turning. They're not rolling in riches nor scraping by, but their consistent spending is vital to keeping the economy humming. In recent years, however, Europe and America's once thriving middle class has hit a snag. Workplaces have changed. Jobs once securely in the domain of the middle class have been handed off to robots or sent offshore. Nevertheless, the narrative is changing. The world is witnessing the ascent of a new demographic. An astonishing surge is swelling the middle classes, particularly in Asia, excluding Japan. A force soon to wield half of the global spending power. Here's what that means. By 2030, we're looking at a tale of two middle classes. In Asian and emerging nations, we're observing a middle-class boom, a trend that points to vastly fewer people living below the poverty line. And that's a win for the world. Homegrown companies like China's Alibaba or rideshare champion Didi are on track to become titans on a global stage. Their rise spells a stark call to action for Western enterprises aiming to penetrate these booming markets, adapt, or face obscurity. Walmart's bold yet blundering foray into the developing world epitomizes a cultural misstep, offering unwieldy bulk goods to South Koreans who favor smaller purchases, and optimistically stocking skis in a Brazilian market sans ski slopes. their expansion efforts fell flat. As this emergent middle class gains wealth, they're also expected to shoulder heavier debt driven by the hallmarks of middle class life: homes, cars, and flashy status symbols. This escalates consumption and, inevitably, the volume of global waste. In contrast, the forecast for the US and Europe has a different hue. Despite more middle-class households in absolute numbers, their share of society's overall wealth is diminishing, as evidenced by Pew Research Center's statistics. From the overpowering 80 million in 1971, the middle class proportionally thinned by 2015, barely keeping pace with the sum of wealthier or poorer homes. Once upon a time, the Western middle-class existence was the dream. By 2030, the tables may well have turned, reflecting a remarkable reorientation of aspiration and influence on the world stage. Part 4. The Feminine Financial Surge. Women take the economic helm picture. A world where Lehman Brothers might have been sisters. Would the world of finance have crumbled as it did in 2008? Perhaps not. Research into the trading patterns of male and female brokers suggests that women's caution may have curbed the perilous financial gambles taken by their male counterparts. This nugget of insight is a prelude to a major shift that's on the horizon. By the year 2030, women are set to control more than half of the global wealth, marking a seismic shift in who's tugging at the economy's strings. Here lies the pivotal point. Women will be the financial decision makers in 2030. Now, what thrusts women into this empowering economic light? Despite being an active workforce, the road to wealth and leadership has been riddled with systemic barriers for women. Caregiver roles often derail career progression, leading to loss of income, a reality quantified by the University of Chicago, showing a female MBA on a 3-year career break could see her earning capacity plummet by 40% compared to her male colleagues. Yet the tides are turning, promising a brighter horizon for working women. Thanks to the double whammy of an aging population and a dwindling birth rate, the reservoir of skilled labor is draining. Businesses are increasingly leaning on the talents of working mothers out of necessity. This isn't just a theory, it's unfolding before our eyes in Japan. With one of the lowest birth rates globally, Japan's workforce is in dire straits. Women, traditionally nudged out of their jobs by childbirth, are now re-entering the fray, with a record-breaking 71% of women of working age currently employed full-time, a trend indicating the shape of things to come worldwide. Our collective mindset is keeping pace with this institutional transformation. Time travel back to 1953 and a Gallup poll reveals that a mere 4% would have welcomed a female boss, with 66% favoring male leadership. Fast forward to today, and the landscape has dramatically adjusted. The 2017 continuation of the survey shows an almost equal preference for male and female bosses, with a substantial slice of neutrality. When women grip the purse strings, spending patterns will naturally evolve. Sectoral investments traditionally favored by women, like education, healthcare, and insurance, are set to flourish. In terms of financial disposition, safer bets such as indexed stock funds will likely become investment darlings, championed by the increasingly powerful cadre of female investors. 2030 beckons, with a world where the financial ethos is reshaped by feminine insight, a realm where economic diversity may well equate with economic stability. Part 5. Reimagining Urban Life for a Sustainable Future. The glimmering skylines of Paris, New York, and Shanghai signal hubs of human ambition, but also flag-bearers of some of our most pressing challenges: inequality, pollution, and escalating temperatures. The stark reality is that cities, despite covering only a sliver of the planet's land, are now the main stage of human activity, consuming 3/4 of our energy and giving rise to most carbon emissions. As we edge closer to 2030, the imperatives of climate change loom large over these urban giants, home to more than half of the global population, many lacing the vulnerable coastlines. From Jakarta's sprawling metropolis to Venice's sinking canals, urban centers brace for the profound impacts of climate upheaval. To navigate through the encroaching environmental storm, cities must undergo a radical transformation. Let's dive into the crux. Urban lifestyles must pivot to embrace sustainability. There's a silver lining amid the smog, however. Small shifts in daily habits by city dwellers could forge a path towards positive change. But old habits die hard, and that's where urban incentives come into play. Cities can empower residents to make greener choices effortlessly. Picture contactless payment systems on buses and reduced fares, nudging commuters towards convenient and sustainable transit options. Another piece of the puzzle lies in the city's capability to sustain themselves. Urban farming doesn't just curb the emissions associated with food transit, it promotes a verdant cityscape that helps digest carbon emissions. Singapore is leading this movement with Sky Greens, a pioneering enterprise cultivating leafy greens in high-tech vertical gardens. Their secret? Eco-friendly tech enabling them to run a tower at costs barely crossing $3 a month. Plus, in cities marred by economic downturns, this innovative agriculture breathes life back into neglected structures while seeding jobs at the heart of the city. Cities are set to burgeon unrestrained. By 2030, the Million-Plus Residents Club will welcome over 400 cities. Waiting is no longer an option. The coming decade demands an urban renaissance where sustainability is woven into the lifestyle's fabric. Cities have to champion green initiatives like vertical gardening and promote eco-conscious habits as their de facto code of existence. Only through such transformative actions can they weather the strains of the climate crisis bearing down on them. Part 6. Embrace the innovation wave. A glimpse into tomorrow's tech landscape. Cast your mind back to the retro charm of the Jetsons, that 1962 crystal ball into 2062, complete with flying cars and robot maids. Fast forward to today, and we're zeroing in on 2030, a year that may not boast airborne traffic jams, but is certain to be a whirlwind of technological marvels. Take note of the pivotal insight. The upcoming decade will usher in a tech transformation at lightning speed. Our homes may not have Rosie the robot tending to our needs, but artificial intelligence, taking cues from the likes of her, has already replaced millions of workers with bots. By 2030, the landscape will have shifted further, with coders outranking manual laborers on the factory floor. Picture this. AI venturing into realms once considered the sole dominion of human finesse. Legal aid, education, even the touch of a surgeon's hand. As a harbinger of this future, a robot has already delicately stitched up a pig's intestine back in 2016. 3D printing is poised to leap from novelty to necessity. Imagine snapping together dentures or vital components, fresh from the printer. Communities on the front lines of climate change could deploy 3D printed seawalls as bulwarks against relentless tides, or drop artificial reefs into the ocean to nurture marine life. Some Chinese companies are taking this a step further, churning out entire houses from their printers, a revolution that promises miracles for areas ravaged by calamity. Yet while these advancements preoccupy the developed world, swaths of humanity languish in conditions that seem snatched from the 1800s. In these regions, the most groundbreaking tech may not be some futuristic gadget, but a redefinition of a centuries-old staple, the humble toilet. This is where the ingenuity of startups like Luwat comes into play. They're engineering waterless toilets that encapsulate waste for electricity generation, a simple twist that could transform millions of lives. In a decade teeming with progress, it's innovations like the waterless toilet, both elementary and life-changing, that could cast the longest shadow. While we may not live quite like the Jetsons by 2030, the trajectory of our lives will undeniably be shaped by the tech we adopt, bridging the divide between the past, the present, and a future once imagined. Part 7. The Era of Access over Ownership, Embracing the Sharing Economy. Take a moment to picture a sandbox where tiny tots negotiate over pails and shovels. Not every tyke is eager to lend their toys. Yet, fast forward to 2030, and we'll find that sharing has become second nature. The world is pivoting towards a sharing economy, an ecosystem where ownership takes a back seat to collective access. Consider the possibility of calling a house across continents your home, or a vehicle in every city you travel to your own car. With the twist that these assets are not exclusively yours. They're communal, accessed by many for a fee. For millennials and Gen Zers, this is an appealing future, one where experiences and flexibility triumph over the accumulation of goods. Here's the essential takeaway. Brace for a future rooted in shared, not sole, ownership. This concept of a sharing economy isn't fresh off the boat. It's been gaining steam ever since Uber and Airbnb disrupted what it means to hail a ride or book a stay. Their success hints at a broader wave, one that emerged at the precise moment when the emergence of mobile apps met a shift in consumer values. By 2030, collaborative consumption, the phenomenon of using shared goods and services, is projected to eat up half of our spending habits. This isn't limited to tangible items like bicycles or tents. It envelopes workspaces mingled with enterprises and independent workers, crowdsourced funding for personal endeavors, and peer-to-peer financial support, bypassing traditional gatekeepers like banks. Doesn't it sound like a collective utopia? Well, it's not without its hitches. The hallmark of sharing platforms is flexibility. While this spells liberation for consumers, it may leave the workforce, the temp and freelance personnel, dangling without the safety net of standard employment benefits. Nevertheless, the upside of sharing has a spell-binding allure. It signifies a potential renaissance in consumption habits, easing the pressure on resources with fewer possessions, and potentially steering us towards a more sustainable existence. Embracing the sharing culture might just be the radical shift needed to ensure the longevity of our planet, an endeavor that hinges on our willingness to learn the delicate art of collective usage. Part 8. Decrypting the Future, Cryptocurrency's Surge in the Next Decade. Envision the awe of Marco Polo in the distant reaches of 13th century China as he encountered a marvel, paper currency, treated with the reverence owed to precious metals. Fast forward several centuries and humanity is once more on the cusp of a monumental shift in the conception of currency. As we peer into the next 10 years, the once alien idea of cryptocurrency inches towards becoming a staple of our financial world. Let's delve into the foresight. Cryptocurrency is set to unlock its true potential in the coming decade. To understand cryptocurrency, take Bitcoin as a prime example. Existing solely in the digital expanse, Bitcoin is a decentralized phenomenon, unbound by any government or central bank. Its ledger, the blockchain, is an unbroken chain of recorded transactions, secure, transparent, and impervious to tampering, hailed by many as the most secure currency to have ever existed. Currently, the majority are wary of trading in their bank cards for a digital wallet. And who can blame them? Cryptocurrency's worth can somersault with alarming regularity. 1 minute, a Bitcoin stands tall at $20,000. The next, it slumped to $2,500. Yet, it's not the coin itself, but the blockchain technology underpinning it that holds the key to transforming our daily transactions. Picture a world where contractual milestones trigger automatic crypto payments, or where each microtransaction chips off a tiny tax contribution directly into governmental coffers. And there's a moral dimension, too. Take Dexio, an app leveraging blockchain to verify the ethical sourcing of diamonds, providing consumers a clear conscience. Imagine this extended to e-voting, fortifying democratic processes, or to intellectual property rights, ensuring artists and creators receive their dues with every click, stream, or download. As we venture into the realm of cryptocurrency, there lies a treasure trove of possibilities, waiting to be explored and adopted. The challenge before us is to welcome this technology with open arms and minds, unlocking avenues for security, convenience, and ethics in a world that's rapidly digitizing. Final summary. As you stand perched on the edge of a new era, the winds of change are unmistakable. The 2030 horizon gleams with a spectrum of pivotal transformations. We'll face the storms of a warming climate and navigate the demographic sea changes as our population skews older. But amidst these waves, a myriad of opportunities beckons. The flourish of the sharing economy, the burgeoning promise of cryptocurrency, and the breakthroughs in technologies that feel plucked from science fiction. The coming decade isn't just a testament to human progression. It's a siren call for readiness and adaptability. It's a time to fortify our resolve against the onrush of challenges while seizing the ripe prospects that unfurl before us. In the intricate dance of the 2020s, foresight and preparation will be our partners, enabling us to not just endure the approaching shifts, but to thrive within them, crafting a future that's as resilient as it is enriched. Thank you for joining me today on this journey of learning and discovery as we explored the insights of another thought-provoking book in our growing library of knowledge. If you've enjoyed our time together, please take a moment to follow our podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and share 20-minute books with other knowledge seekers. Your support truly means a lot. Don't forget to join me again in the next episode, where we will delve into another enriching book. Until then, happy reading and happy listening.